how's Patty about Cincinnati? What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.
Hey, Reds fans, welcome to another edition of We Love Our Team. I'm Jack Greiner. I'm here with my partner, Randy Freaking, and we are pleased to welcome today Annie Sabo to the podcast. Annie grew up in Cincinnati, attended Ursuline High School, and then attended the University of Michigan. She's worked in the world of sports journalism since graduating from Michigan. She's been a sports reporter at WFLA in Tampa, Florida, the NFL Around the League host for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a host on the Big Ten Network, and is currently on Bally Sports, where she hosts the Reds pre- and post-game shows. Annie, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
So, there we go. We have a raucous studio audience, Annie, and we just never know. We just never know when they're going to let loose. But hey, catch us up a little bit.
I try to keep them under control, Annie. I try to keep them under control.
I wasn't expecting that, and that was funny. I liked that.
So catch us up a little bit. How's your family? Where are you living these days?
My family's good. So they moved to Florida when I was a sophomore at the University of Michigan. So they've been in Florida for quite some time now. And then I kind of stuck around in Florida after my job at WFLA. So I am living down in Sarasota, Florida, along with my parents. My sisters live in Tampa. So we're all kind of based in Florida now. I have a daughter. That was crazy last year trying to work and do it all. But yeah, my husband plays on the Korn Ferry Tour, which is below the PGA Tour. So when I'm not here at work, I am traveling with him on the Korn Ferry Tour. Makes for, I think we are the most traveled family in all of America right now with our 1-year-old daughter and our small 15-pound dog. So we are very busy, but we wouldn't have it any other way. It's fun.
That's awesome.
We want people in Reds country to follow Kevin Roy, so we've got to give a shout out to his name on the Korn Ferry Tour.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's terrific. Do your parents agree with Randy? Randy and I both are grandparents, and we think that it is the only thing in life that lives up to the hype. I don't know if your parents agree with that or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see how your parents change once they become a grandparent, because I mean, you're so used to your parents in one way raising you, being your parents, but then once they turn into grandparents, it's a completely different world. Dad loves my daughter. I mean, so does my mom's, and my 2 sisters are obsessed with my daughter. So it's been really fun to kind of see my whole family interact with my daughter. She's been great. She's been to the ballpark here at Great American a few times already this year. Traveled last year to the ballpark at 6 weeks here, 6 weeks. So yeah, she's a well-traveled baby.
That's awesome. We probably shouldn't assume too much, Annie, just for maybe some of our younger listeners, when we're talking about your dad. He is Chris Sabo, who was a Rookie of the Year in 1988 with the Reds, an integral part of the 1990 Wire-to-Wire Championship, and a real good guy and really kind of an icon in Cincinnati. I think he was a very popular player, and I guess he was still a Red when you were born. I think is that right?
Yeah, so I was born in 92. My dad won a World Series in Cincy in 90. So unfortunately, I wasn't alive for that. But people always ask me what I remember about my dad playing. And unfortunately, he retired when I was about 4 years old. So I don't remember all that much. Thank God we have old videos that I've seen of the 90 World Series and games that he's played in. But yeah, I mean, it was crazy growing up. I guess I didn't realize how popular my dad was here in Cincinnati. I mean, obviously he's a great dad, and I knew him as, only a great dad, but when he comes back to Cincinnati now, I guess I didn't realize just how much of an impact he had on the fans here in Cincinnati. And I get asked a lot too, does he still drive the Ford Escort? No, he does not, but he still has the same haircut, the flat top haircut that he has had basically my entire life. So he still has that haircut to this day. But he's pretty much the same. He hasn't changed very much since his playing days.
Does anybody call him Spuds McKenzie anymore?
Yes, actually, my daughter Mia, she knows. I mean, granted, she can't talk yet, but my mom is Mimi, and my dad is Grandpa Spuds, or just Spuds. So a lot of people still call him that. My in-laws call him Spuds. My husband calls my dad Spuds. He actually prefers that.
That's hilarious.
So yes, the nickname is still used pretty much every day.
I think that was courtesy of Pete Rose. I think, as I recall, Pete was he was big on nicknames and usually influenced by television. So I think he saw the Spuds McKenzie commercial, and but I think he called Paul O'Neill Jethro because he thought he looked like Jethro on the Beverly Hillbillies, and he called
that is a true story.
And he called Tom Browning Otis in honor of the character on Andy Griffith, who was the town drunk. Now, I think he thought he looked like Otis. I don't know that it was, a reflection of anything more than just the outward appearance. Did you guys? So I know your dad went to he went to Baltimore after he left the Reds. Did you guys stay in Cincinnati for after he left, or were you born in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I was born here in Cincinnati. My middle sister Brooke was born in Sarasota, Florida, and then my youngest sister Olivia was born here in Cincinnati. My mom took all of us wherever my dad was playing. So, I mean, when he was with Baltimore, we were in Baltimore. When he was with the White Sox, we were in Chicago. I can't really remember all those moves.
Right.
But no, she took us, God bless her, pretty much everywhere and to pretty much every game growing up. That's why I joke with people. I love ballpark food. Love it. Love soft pretzels, hot dogs, popcorn. That's my favorite meal in the world. And I think it's because I grew up going to the ballpark every single day as a kid. So yes, when I work to this day, I will often bypass the media meals and I will get like a hot dog and popcorn and eat it on the field or a soft pretzel, something.
Annie, I love the pre and post game shows on the Reds. I'm kind of an avid Reds watcher, and I go to a lot of games. And I'm just wondering, when are you going to appear with the goggles on?
I did it one show. Gosh.
Oh, I missed that.
I think it was 2 seasons ago. It was my inaugural season 2 seasons. So like 2 years ago, I did one show. We couldn't find my dad's original pair of rec specs. So we had like a replica from when he was a head coach at Akron. So I wore those probably in the archives somewhere. Again, it was like 2 going on 3 years ago. But growing up in Cincinnati, we had so many pairs of his rec specs kind of in a storage drawer in our den. I think some of them might have gotten lost in my parents' move from Cincinnati to Sarasota, Florida. I'm not entirely sure. So I think they might be on the lookout for that. But I think the next step in the evolution of the goggles is putting them on my daughter eventually. Again, she's almost 1, so maybe we'll have to wait until she's a little bit older.
Well, I hope we were talking with somebody about how now when players celebrate after winning, the pennant or the World Series, they wear goggles in the locker room because of the champagne. So I'm hoping, Annie, that the next time you wear goggles is part of the celebration for the Reds winning the pennant. With champagne being doused on your head, that would be the best, I think.
I have heard from other female reporters, some of my friends who have covered other teams, that it takes them a while to get the champagne out of their hair. But yes, that would be very welcomed, wearing the goggles, having to smell like champagne for a week or so. If the Reds can, clinch a playoff spot, I'm all in.
Well, Annie, I know you're a proud graduate of Ursuline Academy. That's also where my daughter went to high school. She was probably 5 or 6 years ahead of you. But I have to ask you, I'm fairly disappointed in your college choice only because you turned down, I understand you turned down the Harvard of the Midwest, that the University of Dayton offered you a tennis scholarship.
Yeah, that's true. My high school tennis coach in Cincinnati became the head coach at Dayton, and I seriously considered going to play tennis. And I loved Dayton. It was a great campus, good school. They had a great broadcasting program too. So that was something I seriously considered. But I think at the end of the day, I had always wanted to go to a really big school, having gone to smaller schools my entire life growing up. So I felt like Michigan was the right choice for me. My dad's from Detroit, so that's why I chose to go to Michigan. He went to Michigan as well. And I don't think I had the talent to be the next Serena Williams, unfortunately, although I would have loved that. That's why I decided to choose Michigan over Dayton. But I mean, yeah, Dayton's a great campus. For those Michigan haters, my sister went to Ohio State, so we have a divided household in our household, and I think both schools are great. Michigan was always kind of my dream school, and didn't know academically if I'd be able to get in, but got in, and that it was kind of a no-brainer to go there.
I tell people that the University of Michigan Law School sent me a letter back in 1980 suggesting that I'd be a better fit at Notre Dame. So, so that's why I root for Ohio State every year. But that's okay. We could all be friends. Hey, do you remember?
I
Annie?
think they wrote me a letter and suggested I be an auto mechanic.
Annie, do you remember? I mean, obviously you were going to games in the womb, probably, but do you have any recollection of an early game that stands out in any way for you? We talk a lot to people who just, for whatever reason, they might remember, one of their first games. I'm just curious.
I honestly don't, and I wish I did. However, I remember going to different ballparks, and I remember going to Riverfront. It was Riverfront when my dad played, yeah. And they had underneath kind of where the clubhouses were, there was an area with babysitters that all the players' kids went into during the game. And so my mom would drop me off there, and I loved it because there were so many toys. I remember watching my dad on TV in the little kids club area and sharing Doritos with several of the kids in the kids club. And I thought it was honestly the greatest thing ever. That's like the only early memory I have of being at baseball games when my dad played. But I guess a really good memory I do have is when my dad got inducted into the Reds Hall of Fame. I believe it was in 2008. I know it wasn't a game, but it was just a whole weekend where my dad was celebrated, and we had his sister and I mean everyone coming to town, and it was just a whole event that weekend. And I got to really take in how special it was for my dad and how special it was for our family. I mean, it was awesome. I had a great time. Again, realizing the impact that my dad had here in Cincinnati was huge. And I think I was like 12 or 13 at that time. So I really got to understand how significant that 90 World Series was and how big of a part my dad was of that. So I think that Hall of Fame induction in 2008 was a huge memory. But I mean, playing days, unfortunately, don't have much memory.
Would you say you were a baseball fan growing up? I mean, obviously you played tennis, but did you would you say you were a Reds fan? I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean I think in my grade school we had a field trip a couple years going to a Reds game. I mean, growing up we always had in the fall Bengals football and then Michigan football on, and then in the summer, I mean, we watched the Reds game quite literally every single day. My grandparents, who lived in Dayton, Ohio, before they passed away a few years ago, they would watch the Reds game and listen to Marty and Joe every single night, pretty much my entire life. So yeah, I mean, we grew up watching every single baseball game, every sport really. We didn't necessarily watch a whole lot of TV shows. It was kind of You
Yeah.
finish dinner, do your homework, do whatever you got to do, and then we're going to watch some type of sporting event on TV. And my dad had the remote, so you didn't have much choice there. Yeah, I mean, we all enjoy it. I mean, we love going to games in person. My sisters live in Tampa, and they go to Rays games all the time. I mean, we really enjoy going to get baseball games in person too. And I know I've said this on different podcasts, but for me to work here for the Reds and to work at Great American Ballpark, it's truly a dream come true. And I don't have to sit at a desk all day. I get to go to the ballpark for work and have a hot dog and a soft pretzel, and life is good.
That's great. Hey, I read that you were influenced by Erin Andrews to pursue your sports broadcasting career. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think it was when I was still at Ursuline in high school, and I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do in college. I was good at English, but not necessarily great at anything academically. But I just knew I always loved sports. I loved gym class, and my mom said I couldn't tell people that gym class was my favorite subject in school. So we were watching some football game, and Erin Andrews came on the screen, and my dad just quite nonchalantly said, "Why don't you do that for a career?" And I was like, all right, I'll try to do that. And that was kind of, it's the weirdest story, but I was just kind of like, okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do. And from that moment forward, I just kind of, was looking into colleges with good broadcasting programs and seeing kind of what you had to do to get into the broadcasting route. Funny enough, when I was at WFLA in Tampa, Erin Andrews' father, Steve, had been at that station for, oh my gosh, so many years. And he was just so wonderful and lovely to talk to. So I got to talk to him a little bit. And then I've met Erin several times just throughout, it's a really small industry, the sports broadcasting world, especially if you're a woman. So you kind of know everyone. She is fabulous as well, has done so great with her career. But yeah, it was kind of seeing her on TV back then. She was kind of the only female covering sports. It's changed a lot since then. But yeah, kind of a easy suggestion by my dad. And I was kind of like, all right, I guess I'm gonna do that. And here we are 15 years later.
That's fantastic. I remember, well, so Annie, my daughter attended Ursuline with Annie and played basketball. And I remember a game, I think, where you interviewed the head coach before the game for the cable broadcast. And I said right then, I said, oh man, she's got it. She's good. So.
Yeah, I totally remember that, being so nervous. Like, we didn't really have any, I know Ursuline maybe has some broadcasting or something going on now, but we had nothing, back then. So I remember, yeah, it was some basketball game and I did some interview. I don't even remember, but I just remember being so nervous and not knowing what to do. And, but I loved it. It was so much fun. And I realized that even though I was nervous and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, that I wanted to continue to pursue that in college. And that's what I did.
That's great. Was there opportunities? Did they have, did Michigan have, were you able to be on camera while you were at Michigan? Did they have a university TV station or something?
Yeah. So they had a university, just a student run TV station. So I honestly got to learn not only, being in front of the camera, but, what preparation going into a show looks like, what, producing the show from behind the scenes, what doing a camera is like. Then I worked for the Big Ten Network. Each Big Ten school has a student U program. So basically you're hired and you're paid to produce lower scale games. So it's not like we're doing Michigan football and Michigan basketball, but we would do, softball, baseball, women's basketball, what else? Volleyball. And so after our classes, yeah, we would just go, set up cameras, set up graphics, set up all the things. And I got to learn every single position in front of the camera and behind the camera. And it was just, I loved it. That was my friend group in college. Learned so much, got to get some reps there. And then my senior year, I became the first ever student reporter for the football team for our main athletic website, mgoblue.com. And I had a boss there, Patrick McLaughlin, who is still there. He taught me how to do everything, if I did a stand up in front of the camera and it wasn't good enough, he would tell me to do it again. And he would teach me how to write stories. And I just owe so much to him because I was so prepared out of college from that one job my senior year. When I went to my first TV job in Corpus Christi, Texas, I was so ahead of the curve. I knew how to write stories. I knew how to shoot video by myself. I knew how to shoot stand-ups. I mean, it was just so valuable for me at Michigan. I didn't necessarily, in my classes, do a whole lot of hands-on learning, but outside of my classes is where I had like 3 jobs that I worked and learned so much.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So what were you covering in Corpus Christi? What was that, cowboy country or?
Yeah, it was pretty much, actually high school baseball was really big, and high school football, I liken it to the Friday Night Lights TV show. High school football on Fridays were huge. We had live shows. I did, live pre and post game interviews with coaches. We had a 30-minute football show on Fridays. It was so much fun. We actually did a couple of live broadcasts as well when I was in Corpus Christi, and I got to be the sideline reporter for that. So a lot of high school sports, and we had the Astros AA affiliate, the Corpus Christi Hooks in Corpus too. So a whole lot of baseball and high school football. It was warm. I knew after Michigan, I wanted to go somewhere really warm. Corpus Christi was hot, and made a lot of great friends there, learned a lot. I still communicate with a lot of the girls that I met at those stations, but more high school sports than the Corpus Christi Hooks. It was so much fun. I mean, I didn't have many off days, but when I did have an off day in Texas, I was often at one of those AA games.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And Annie, I know you covered the Olympics in 2018 at the early stages of your career. Can you tell us about that and how that experience was?
Yeah, that was going on my second year at WFLA in Tampa, and got selected as one of 6 people across Nexstar Broadcasting, a giant broadcasting company, to go to Pyeongchang, South Korea, to cover the Winter Olympics in 2018. At this point, I had never been outside of the country, outside of Canada and Mexico. I don't really count that, but it was the first international trip that I was ever going to do. So I was a little bit nervous traveling 14 hours in an airplane, and all the preparation that it took. I mean, it pretty much took a year of preparation and traveling to get ready for the 2018 Olympics, in terms of, getting athletes' stories and traveling to different states. I covered a lot of the athletes from the Florida region, which in the Winter Olympics isn't that many. However, we had a pair of, shocking. We had a pair of speed skaters, and the women's hockey team actually trained out of Tampa, Florida. So that was kind of my beat, to cover the 2 speed skaters and the women's hockey team. And so getting to South Korea, I was there for 31 days, working pretty much 17-hour days for 31 days straight. So it was flip-flopped time-wise. So I worked the evening shift back home, which meant I was the morning shift back in South Korea. So we did live shots for 2.5, 3 hours for different stations across the country, giving the news of the day, what people should be looking for, stories that we did. And then after I was done with that, I would go out and shoot a story for the following day. So finding athletes, finding an interesting story, going out, shooting that by myself, figuring out, how to get to certain places with a language barrier in South Korea in the Olympic Village was tough. But no, it was a great experience. I got to see the U.S. women's hockey team beat Canada in the gold medal game in person. That was, one of the greatest memories I have. It was just awesome being there, and a lot of hard work. It's not all glitz and glamour. It was difficult and challenging, and the time difference was, hard at times, but an experience that I would definitely do again, given the opportunity. And hopefully it would be Summer Olympics, because the cold's not really my vibe, but it was really fun. And I would totally do it again in Pyeongchang, South Korea, Seoul, South Korea. It was just a really cool area.
Did any of your family get an opportunity to go there, or any of your close friends? Anything like that?
Nope, it was just me, myself, and I, and then the 5 other reporters across the Nexstar conglomerate of media that went.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I want to get us back to we love our team here a little bit. So I'm curious, Annie, who was your favorite Reds player when you were growing up?
When I was growing up, I mean, Barry was kind of at the tail end of his career, Barry Larkin. So, I mean, he played with my dad for some time. So I think I always followed him more closely. For whatever reason, I really enjoyed watching Aaron Boone. They're just lovely people. So I would say those 2 guys. Loved Sean Casey when he was a member of the Cincinnati Reds, and he is just awesome on television. Love to watch him. So I think those are 3 guys that I really enjoyed watching. And then, this current team is just electric too. I mean, what else can you say about Ellie De La Cruz? He's just been awesome.
Yeah, right. That's great. Well, I'm really impressed with how prepared, when I watch the pregame and the postgame, your preparation. I just feel like you are very, very well prepared, and as a fan, we all appreciate that. And is that a lot of baseballreference.com? You spend a lot of time on that site, or what's your source?
Well, thank you. We get from MLB Network, we get a packet of notes every single day, previewing, the matchups. And then I also have a website that I got when I was back in Minnesota called Sport Radar, which is basically another huge packet of information that I go through prior to every game and, kind of highlight things that I think are noteworthy. And then Baseball Savant is also a great resource. Baseball Reference is great, but I feel like Baseball Savant takes it one step further.
Huh.
And then just reading, daily news articles and seeing an interesting stat that I can look up further and dive deeper into maybe and make it kind of my own is something that I do. But I think that the daily notes packets from MLB Network are huge. The Baseball Savant and then the Sport Radar website that is given to broadcasters has been kind of my trio of information. And then, Baseball Reference is always key too. And then just, going back and looking at games. I look up, if Hunter Green's going to start a game, you can go back and look at every single one of his starts, listen to his interviews. So I remember his previous starts. So it's just kind of research and going back, refreshing your memory and trying to cram everything into your brain for, 3 hours before a game, and off we go.
How did you get your promotion to the Cincinnati Reds? I know you left Minnesota to come here. Mm-hmm. How did your promotion come about?
I had a great job in Minnesota. I was doing MLB coverage for the Twins and NBA coverage for the Timberwolves. So I kind of had a yearly schedule there. And then it just came time. I was getting married. My husband plays pro golf for a living. And unfortunately, living in Minnesota doesn't lend itself to a pro golf career due to the weather. So I made a really difficult decision to put my family first and kind of step back from that job, even though I still talk to my bosses from that station to this day, and I made great friends there. The producers, everyone there was so fabulous. So I kind of took a leap of faith and moved home to Florida without having a job. And I didn't realize how difficult it would be to, get back into full-time work. I, on my own, reached out to every Valley Sports station in terms of, asking, hey, if you need someone to fill in here and there, I'm available. I live in Florida, but I can fly there to get there. And so I reached out to Valley Sports Ohio. In all honesty, working for the Reds had never even crossed my mind. I don't know why. And they offered me, I know, funny, it didn't even cross my mind. They offered me to help with opening day 3 years ago. And that was the only thing that I was going to help with. And I said, yeah, sure. Sounds good. And then they realized they needed a little bit more help in terms of hosting. And given the hosting experience that I had from Minnesota, I could easily fill in. So I ended up doing 40 games that year, and I was promised 1 game. So that was huge for me, not necessarily having having a job outside of Minnesota. Well, actually, no, that year I had worked for Big Ten in the fall and then had a few months off and did baseball. And then I'm in my third season now doing about, 80 or so games, which I'm happy about. I like to be busy. I like to work. I know I have a daughter too, but I like to get away and do this job. It brings me so much happiness, and to be here in Cincinnati. And when the Reds are winning, it's just a feeling like no other. I mean, Cincinnati fans are special. This town is special, and this baseball team is just awesome. The guys in the clubhouse are so easy to work with, so kind, eager to win. And I'm just, again, I consider myself so blessed and lucky to be here.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm a big fan of the podcast Baseball Tonight, and I really admire Sarah Langs. And I wonder if you've ever had a chance to run into her or cross paths with her during your career.
I have not personally. I found out about her, oh gosh, years ago, probably when I was first in Minnesota, given her extensive research knowledge. I mean, she's, in my opinion, one of the best researchers out there. Unfortunately, she's dealing with an ALS diagnosis, and she's my age, which is just so heartbreaking. I know a lot of girlfriends of mine who are reporters of other teams, and they say nothing but the greatest things of her. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It kind of makes me sad to talk about her. I know she's, handling her diagnosis with great bravery and strength, but I truly think she is so gifted when it comes to her research, and I always enjoyed watching her on MLB Network. And I have not personally met her, but I just applaud her research from afar and her work from afar.
Yeah, she's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
She's always got her.
If I could have her brain, that would help me out.
Well, I always wanted to have Randy's brain, but no such luck.
Right. I always wanted to have your looks, Jack.
Well, So, have you found that people have been welcoming? And I think we talked to Betsy Ross, who had been on ESPN and was a local broadcaster, and she just kind of talked about, she's older than you, and just just kind of the struggles for being a woman in the industry. And I'm just wondering how that's, how you've experienced that. Have you run into barriers or anything, or have we evolved a little bit since when Betsy started, do you think?
I think there are still barriers. I feel like some people might say there are no barriers, but I still think there are barriers for women in this industry, especially trying to balance raising a child and doing this job. I find that, quite frankly, close to impossible if you don't have a parent like my mom, who was amazing to help me take care of my daughter. Granted, if my husband worked a normal job, maybe I'd be in a different situation, but that's not the case. I think there are still barriers. I think that one of the biggest challenges today in comparison to 5 years ago, maybe, is that post-COVID, this job has gotten so much more competitive in terms of spots due to budget cuts. 5 years ago, there were, 15 openings with 100 people applying, and now there are 2 openings with 500 people applying. It's just, it's the nature of the business has gotten so competitive that I feel the pressure to perform every single day has gotten higher, I think. I mean, being on air, you always want to do your best, but some days, you just don't have your best stuff. It's kind of like a baseball player. You're not going to bat 1,000 every single day. You're not going to bat 300 every single day. It's kind of the nature of the business. So I think in a competitive sense, it's gotten a lot tougher. And I think there are still challenges for women in the industry in terms of trying to balance being a mom and doing this job. Still trying to navigate that. And I have, counted on several other moms in the industry as, mentors and resources, especially women working in baseball, because the schedule is a little bit different. It's not football, 1 game a week. It's a game every single day. So that's something I'm still trying to work on and not work on, I should say, but navigate and maybe perfect maybe prior to next season. I don't know if that's possible. But I mean, in terms of, being respected and things like that, I feel like I'm warmly received here in Cincinnati. I love the fans. I love my broadcast crew. I just think that there are challenges in the industry for women to still overcome.
Yeah.
In my personal experience. And I can't speak for other people, but that's just from my own personal experience.
I'm sure that's true. How about Jim Day? For one reason or another, I just love Jim Day. And I always wanted to do a podcast with him called Every Freaking Day. But I realized that might be difficult to do that every day. So how is Jim?
Jim is probably one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. And I don't think he's trying to be funny. It's just, that's how he comes off. No, Jim Day is awesome. And I tell him this all the time. And I know he doesn't like when I say this because it ages him. But I mean, growing up, we always used to watch the Reds pre and post game shows, and Jim Day was always on the shows. And I always thought he did such a great job and was funny on the air. And funny enough, I still get to work with Jim. So he's awesome. I love working with Jim. He has a podcast. So not only is he doing like 1 million games a year, but he's also doing a podcast. I mean, Jim does 1 million things a day. So you never quite know where he is or what he's doing because he has so many things that he's up to. But he's cool. He's hilarious. The players love him. I mean, I feel like the city of Cincinnati loves him. That's why he's been here so long. And I personally can say nothing but great things of Jim Day, and he makes me laugh a lot.
That's great.
He makes us all laugh.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Annie, we're kind of coming up on our time, and we don't want to intrude. I know you've got a lot. Are you working tonight?
Yes. I'm going to go over to the ballpark in maybe a little less than 2 hours.
Okay. Great. Well, just one thing I wanted to say was I know Erin Andrews spent some time on Dancing with the Stars. And if you ever aspire to that, I will say that, I attended some father-daughter dances with you and your dad. And I will say I don't foresee Chris ever being on Dancing with the Stars. But that's as far as I'm going to leave it. But
I actually thought I was a great dancer until I met my husband, and he told me that I wasn't a good dancer. So I have been dealing with that for the last 4 years. I would love to try it maybe down the road. Again, I am not a good dancer, but I'm up for any challenge. But yes, I don't think my dad and I would be a great duo. We'd be competitive. We want to win, but I don't think our dancing skills are quite up to par.
We had a lot of fun.
I think you should do it with Jack. I think you and Jack on Dancing with the Stars.
She's a host. Erin Andrews was a host. I'm not saying dance. I'm saying be a host on. I'm moving you right up the ladder.
I thought you were saying dance. I would do either. I would try. Yeah. I would love to host it. That'd be fun. But hey, I would give my dancing skills a test, which could be scary, but you never know.
Well, good enough. Well, Annie, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Of course. Bye, guys.
That's awesome. Annie, fantastic.
Under control.
Okay, folks, another standing ovation for our guest, Annie Sabo. Okay, here we go. Thank you very much, Annie.
Bye, guys.
The whole town's standing about Cincinnati. What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.